Throughout Geometry history, countless players have gained praise and respect from the community through hacked achievements. That was until they got caught. Every hacker has a different story, including their rise and their fall. Today we're going to dissect the final moments of 10 different hacker careers, with each one getting crazier than the last. To ease our way into this, let's start off with level 1 and take a look at two hackers who had the most tame ending to their reigns that we've ever seen. Xander and Andromeda were hackers from two different eras of the game, however their careers ended in the exact same fashion. Xander was a top player from Australia whose first claim to fame was beating Artificial Ascent when it was number 11 on the Demon list. At some point during 2018, Xander was given the verification of Zodiac, an upcoming top 1 at the time. Zodiac was notorious for its sheer difficulty and unconventional balancing. The level was so far beyond the community's limits that it had gone through multiple hosts and verifiers already. Xander uploaded the verification video on January 19, 2019, which certainly raised a few eyebrows. The two main issues were that the verification had 0 audible clicks, and Xander had never livestreamed himself playing Zodiac before. Pointercrate's proof of legitimacy standards were extremely low back then, meaning Xander was not required to submit any raw footage, proving that he legitimately beat the level. Some people were suspicious of Xander verifying the new top 1 out of nowhere with 0 clicks, but no investigation had taken place. Everyone had more or less accepted that Xander had verified Zodiac. That was until June 2019, when Xander made the following post on his community tab. Without any external pressure, Xander admitted to speed hacking many of his most notable achievements, including Zodiac. This confession did come soon after TGI made a video about preventing hackers, however there is no public evidence that anyone had directly confronted Xander. As far as we know, the guilt of cheating was simply too much to bear, so he decided to put an end to it once and for all. Similarly, Andromeda was a well-known player and creator from Scotland in 1.9. In today's day and age, his achievements might look pretty trivial. However, beating levels such as Necropolis and Cataclysm and verifying Poltergeist and the Ultimate Phase placed him towards the top of the community's skill ceiling. Andromeda was a fan-favorite player and creator in the community at the time. To the surprise of many, Andromeda uploaded a video titled Confession in August 2015. This 2-minute video was made to publicly apologize for hacking nearly every single one of his achievements. Andromeda didn't state his method of hacking, however he claimed that hacking would likely become impossible sometime after Update 2.0 was released. He knew he couldn't stay a hacker forever, so he decided to come clean on his own terms and legitimately rebeat his hacked completions. In order to crank things up a notch, let's move up to level 2 and investigate the end of Dolphy's career as a hacker. Dolphy is a widely known content creator and former top player from Russia. In 2018 and 2019, Dolphy beat infamous levels such as Plasma Pulse Finale, Bloodlust, Spatial Rend, and even the top 1 demon at the time, Zodiac. A resume of this caliber from this era is enough to cement someone's name in Geometry history. However, the best was yet to come for Dolphy. Soon after beating Zodiac, he publicly announced that he had joined the race to verify Tartarus, the new upcoming top 1. He made steady progress on Tartarus over the next 6 months, while also continuing to beat top levels such as Kinos, Renovant, Cognition, and Lucid Nightmares. On the surface, it seems that Dolphy was on his way to cement himself as one of the greatest players of his generation. However, a different story had been developing behind the scenes. Dolphy was notorious for refusing to submit raw footage to the demon list. Any quote-unquote raw footage that he did send was obviously edited. Additionally, some of his completions looked suspicious and piqued the interest of the demon list moderators. A few members of the demon list staff had eventually confronted him about his lack of proof. Every hacking allegation was vehemently denied, but still, no additional proof of legitimacy was provided. The subject was then dropped due to Dolphy's fans harassing and even doxing members of the demon list team with no clear ruling in sight. On January 6, 2020, Dolphy put an end to this chapter by uploading the official verification of Tartarus. A few residual accusations continued to be thrown his way, but nothing definitive was ever made public, and everybody moved on once and for all. That was until earlier this year. In January of 2026, 6 years after Dolphy uploaded his Tartarus verification video, it was revealed that Dolphy had sent an audio message to Vernum confessing that he hacked many of his most notable achievements. Tartarus was included in the lengthy list. The reason that this is only level 2 is because technically Dolphy confessed on his own. Despite the suspicions and lack of evidence, nobody was able to definitively conclude that he was hacking in the moment. However, unlike Xander and Andromeda, Dolphy wasn't the one who broke the news to the public. Let's now move on to level 3, and going forward, we won't see any more confessions as a result of guilt or trust. The remaining 8 exposals will involve undeniable evidence pinning the hacker's back against the wall. Let's spice things up a bit and take a look at someone who posed as a top mobile player. Joywar was a Spanish player who made a name for himself as being one of the best mobile players in 2016 and 2017. He claims to have played on a Samsung S4 and had legitimately beaten levels such as Cataclysm, Hypersonic, and Conical Depression. The community knew him as a rival to Pekoski18, the best mobile player at the time from Italy. Pekoski had been known in the community for a while, but Joywar caught up to him surprisingly fast. His fans were extremely loyal and didn't suspect anything fishy of his achievements. However, the same couldn't be said for the other top mobile players. On May 28, 2017, another top mobile player entered the party when Technical uploaded a 10-minute video exposing Joywar. That wasn't all, because 5 days later, Pekoski dropped a Joywar exposal of his own. If you look at the comments, you might think that Tech and Pekoski made a bunch of baseless claims. After all, Pekoski's video was centered around precise wave and ship movements, which could easily be debunked by saying that Joywar has the skill to beat extreme demons. However, one small clip was enough to make everything come crashing down. At 83% on Joywar's Conical Depression completion, a spike is missing from the level. Once his icon passes the obstacle, the spike reappears. The evidence was undeniable. This Conical Depression completion was illegitimate. Not long after, Joywar confessed to hacking everything. He stated that he cheated and lied because he wanted to be as good as players like Pekoski. Looking back on it, he could have gotten away with everything for much longer had he noticed that one of his Conical Depression copies was missing a spike. Joywar isn't the only hacker who got exposed because something was missing in a video. At level 4, we have none other than CLIQUEonFLEEK. CLIQUEonFLEEK needs a little to no introduction, along with many other names in this video. To keep it brief, he was a Korean top player and creator in the earlier days of Geometry Dash. His first notable achievements came in the form of Cataclysm Progress, which was the top 1 demon at the time. We now know that the level hadn't been verified legitimately, but we'll still refer to it as the top 1 for the sake of this video. After posting a screenshot and a video of getting 50% and 86% respectively, CLIQUEonFLEEK etched his name in Geometry Dash history as the first person to complete Cataclysm. He then continued his reign by completing the second hardest level in Ice Carbon Diablo X. Despite having completed the top 2 hardest levels in the game, these achievements pale in comparison to what came next. Since pro play in Geometry Dash was in its infancy at the time, top demons were getting created and verified left, right, and center. CLIQUEonFLEEK's contribution to this came in the form of Sonic Wave, more specifically what we now know as Old Sonic Wave. This version of Sonic Wave was by far the hardest level in the entire game, but it didn't remain rated for long because CLIQUEonFLEEK claimed he forgot to record the verification. This setback proved to be small in the grand scheme of his career, because he then went on to verify A Bizarre Phantasm and the Hell Zone. Unfortunately for CLIQUEonFLEEK, this is when the first crack appeared in the foundation. There is one frame in the Hell Zone's verification video where CLIQUEonFLEEK's icon disappeared. Back in the day, it was pretty normal for top demon completions to be uploaded in terrible quality. However, this wasn't the case for CLIQUEonFLEEK. He quickly admitted that the Hell Zone had been hacked and that the video had multiple cuts in it. When you respawn in Geometry Dash, your icon flickers a few times. What likely happened is that CLIQUEonFLEEK cut to a run from a start position, but didn't start the run early enough to hide the respawn animation. What the community didn't know yet is that the Hell Zone was only the beginning of the end. Riot confronted CLIQUEonFLEEK on Skype after hearing the news, claiming that a few of his other completions looked suspicious as well. CLIQUEonFLEEK immediately confessed to hacking every single achievement that he had uploaded to his YouTube channel. Every single completion was the result of speed hack or cuts, and even his live stream was pre-recorded. Once the truth came out, CLIQUEonFLEEK disappeared from the community and has made a single-digit number of appearances within the last 10 years. Let's now move on to level 5 and see how Noctifly's career crumbled to pieces. Noctifly was a French top player and the #1 star grinder in 2.1. On top of gaining a ridiculous amount of stars in a short period of time to reach #1 on the leaderboard, he also took down some of the hardest levels released in Update 2.0. One characteristic that made Noctifly stand out from the other top players was his skill at the Wave game mode. Wave was barely 2 years old when 2.1 released, so the hardest demons from this era mostly consisted of straight fly and timings. Beating Sonic Wave at the time was the pinnacle of wave skill, but Noctifly took things a step further in 3 ways. The first was by becoming the first person in the world to legitimately complete a version of Death Corridor. In fact, the version he verified is so difficult that it might still be list-worthy to this day. The reason I throw that fact in there is to show how far ahead Noctifly really was. Even despite that, he didn't stop there. At some point in 2017, he uploaded a video to his YouTube channel titled "When You Act Like a God for 10 Seconds." In this clip from his livestream, he became the first person in the world to complete the galaxy collapse wave, which was a seemingly impossible section of a layout that he had created. The third level that put him in the spotlight was none other than Zafkiel. Zafkiel was a collaboration between Noctifly and Darwin that ended up placing in the top 5 in the demon list. It was one of the first levels to begin the meta of short, difficult wave sections in top demons. Only the best of the best could even complete these waves in runs, so it only made sense for Noctifly to become the verifier. He beat the level, uploaded the video to his YouTube channel, and then watched his entire career go down the drain. In October of 2017, a few channels started posting videos accusing Noctifly of using a macro or semi-auto during difficult wave sections. The proof looked pretty convincing, however Noctifly always found a way out. No matter the accusation, he always had a counter-argument. His fans made their loyalty extremely clear by using dislike bots on videos and channels accusing him of hacking. It seemed as if Noctifly was unstoppable and untouchable. That was until November 14th, 2017. On this day, many of Geometry Dash's biggest names such as Riot, Nobbleboy, and Combined all uploaded the exact same video with slightly different titles. If you strip away the variations, you get one clear message: Noctifly exposed. The video was made by Riot and many other top players and content creators, and it contained a list of the most compelling evidence suggesting that Noctifly was hacking. Most of Riot's arguments in the video went something along the lines of "this can't possibly happen" or "that never happens to anyone," both of which left room for Noctifly to make another escape. However, there was one segment that completely settled the case. During the verification of Zafkiel, the video went black towards the end of the level. Many people called it a cut, but Noctifly and his loyal army fought back. Riot's video put an end to the speculation when he pointed out that the background had changed after the black screen. One of the volcanoes in the background had flipped the complete opposite way, which doesn't happen unless you start a new attempt from somewhere else on the level. This was definitive proof that Noctifly had been cheating. His other controversies were still up in the air since he once again denied cheating on levels such as Death Corridor, Squidplumber Hell, Artificial Ascent, and the Hell Factory. The community wasn't having it this time, and people started turning against him. After all, he did have a history of hacking in Update 1.9, so seeing definitive proof of him hacking a top level in 2.1 destroyed all of his credibility. Riot made another video titled Lies, Deceit, and Manipulation, Noctifly, which was the final blow to his career. He eventually confessed to hacking nearly everything using a semi-auto, just as people had suspected. After confessing, he changed his name to Noctalium and quit the game for good. Some of you guys might be confused as to why this is level 5. In hindsight, Noctifly's hacks should have been incredibly easy to spot. His most notable blunders were his impossible 98% death on the Hell Factory, his impossibly low jump count on Artificial Ascent, and his game-breaking bug in the Squidplumber Hell duel. However, the reason that Noctifly's exposal lands itself above the likes of CLIQUEonFLEEK is how difficult it was to come to a definitive conclusion. Noctifly had a response for every single accusation until one minute detail caused the house of cards to fall. Taking things a step further at level 6, we have an exposal that was a result of a blunder which was even harder to spot. Similar to CLIQUEonFLEEK, Neptune was a Korean top player and creator in the early days of Geometry Dash. In the grand scheme of things, he's mostly remembered as a revolutionary creator, but for this video, we're going to exclusively focus on his playing career. Every player we've discussed up to this point has made a name for themselves by quote-unquote beating the hardest levels in the game. Neptune is no different, however he was only known for verifying his own levels. Unlike the extremely storied careers had by players such as Dolphy and Noctifly, Neptune was mostly known as a player for verifying Deadly Clubstep and Necropolis. They were his two most difficult levels, and unfortunately, they would both lead to his downfall. On June 5th, 2015, a player named Ascum uploaded a video titled The Sad Truth About Neptune. In this video, he drew everyone's attention to a small, yet substantial detail regarding the verification of both Deadly Clubstep and Necropolis. About halfway through Neptune's winning attempt on Deadly Clubstep, a singular saw blade changed its direction of rotation as soon as he went through a portal. The direction a saw blade rotates is predetermined at the beginning of an attempt. Since this saw blade changed directions mid-attempt, we can confidently conclude that the video contained cuts. The same thing happened during the Necropolis verification video, which made the community realize that Neptune was not the top player that everyone thought he was. He initially denied the use of hacks, thinking that everyone would believe him. Once he realized that the evidence was undeniable, Neptune left the community for good. The reason this placed above level 5 is because how difficult it was to notice. Nobody really pays attention to the direction that individual saw blades are turning, and the changes don't stand out when the saws are the same color as the background. The verifications of Deadly Clubstep and Necropolis have been viewed by a large portion of the community at the time, and most people didn't suspect a thing. The only incident Neptune had prior was a glitchy ship trail in a few videos, but he blew it off as a bug and most people believed him. At the end of the day, Neptune missed a small yet significant detail that led to his downfall. Let's completely change the pace and move on to level 7. Next up, we're going to take a look at the embarrassing self-exposal of Taco Macho. Taco Macho was an American player and creator in updates 1.9 and 2.0. He built up his reputation as a player by becoming one of the first victors of Bloodbath and the first victor of Sakup in Hell. He was also one of the few players elite enough to be invited to Geostorm, which was a clan of top players and creators. Naturally, his great success resulted in a fair share of accusations. He was always able to quiet the crowd by playing difficult levels on stream, however this would end up costing him on October 11th, 2016. On this day, Taco Macho decided to speed hack Crimson Clutter, which was one of the hardest circles levels at the time. He knew exactly what he was doing, playing one of the hardest demons from Zero with speed hack enabled. What he didn't know is that at some point, he accidentally started live streaming. We can only assume that he meant to hit start recording and accidentally hit start streaming by mistake. He only went live for about 2 minutes, but the damage had already been done since top players and creators got to watch him cheat in real time. Initially, he pulled the classic hacker move and said that only some of his achievements were hacked. This didn't sit well with the community, and it didn't take long before he admitted to hacking everything, deleted his YouTube channel, and put his player career to rest. He continued to create some interesting levels, which partially saved his reputation. No matter how big his redemption arc was, we can all agree that this was the most humiliating hacker exposal in Geometry Dash history. The odds of accidentally streaming yourself hacking are incredibly low. What's even lower is the odds of how our next exposal unfolded. At level 8, we have the infamous Space UK. Space UK is responsible for the biggest hacking scandal in Geometry Dash history. Content creators such as Aeon, EVW, Vortrox, and more have all uploaded their in-depth analysis of Space's impact, so go check them out if you want to know the full story. For this video, all we need to know is that Space UK is a British player who let one operational error turn into a multi-year hacking career. The TLDR is that he thought he beat the Golden as a new hardest only 6 months after starting to play the game, but it turns out that he had no clip enabled. He submitted the record anyways just to see what would happen, and it actually got accepted. He then decided to see how long he could hack for without getting caught. It turns out that the answer was a very long time. His method of hacking was by clicking over a macro and hoping that the point of crate staff didn't notice. This method quickly helped him become the #1 player on November 10th, 2021, and sustain that position for an eternity. So the real question is, how did nobody notice that our golden player was hacking for nearly 3 years? Well, they did. Space UK was impossibly good. Deep down, many people knew that something was fishy, and a few of them even spoke out about it. In 2021, a player named Colo made the first known exposal videos on Space UK. Colo was correct in claiming that Space had hacked Slaughterhouse, and his reasoning was extremely close to also being correct. Unfortunately for the community, he was just wrong enough to where the Demonless mods didn't take it seriously. Colo claimed that the audio in Space's 92% run had been spliced since some of the click sounds didn't match with the gameplay. The Demonless mods were able to prove that the audio wasn't spliced, therefore they didn't look into it any further. Space got incredibly lucky that he didn't get caught in 2021 for 2 reasons. The first, and most obvious, is that Colo was correct in thinking that Space hacked, like I just mentioned. The second, and perhaps more important reason, is that since the Demonless mods had quote-unquote proven Space's legitimacy, they weren't taking any other exposal seriously. Countless players of all skill levels had publicly or privately accused Space UK of cheating. Some of the accusations predicted his hacking methods to a T, but the list team didn't take them seriously. Point Crate staff even told the accusers that they were blatantly wrong on some occasions. This game of manipulation, favoritism, and oblivion continued all the way until April 2023, when the inevitable finally happened. A player named MSG claimed to have completed the top 3 demons Silent Clubstep as one of his first extreme demons. The completion ended up getting flagged by Pointer Crate as hacked due to the use of hitbox multiplier. While disappointing at the time, MSG hacking Silent Clubstep is one of the most important events in Geometry Dash history. This hacked completion led Paco, the owner of the demon list, to check a few other top demon completions on a whim. About a week later, it was Space UK's turn to get investigated, and the unthinkable happened. On April 25th, 2023, Paco uploaded a 3-minute video titled Exposing Space UK. In this video, it was brought to everyone's attention that a secondary key was lightly pressed on most of Space's winning attempts. Afterwards, the click sounds became impossibly off-sync with the gameplay. Sound familiar? The final nail in the coffin was the discovery of a ZBot watermark on every single end screen, a font size difference of 64 pixels to be exact. With this info becoming public, we officially passed the point of no return. Space UK admitted to hacking nearly every single level he claimed to beat, starting with the Golden. The biggest hacking scandal in Geometry Dash history was finally laid to rest due to MSG hacking Silent Clubstep. The sheer scale of this scandal might lead you to believe that it should be placed at level 10. However, when we look at the specific event that led to a hacker getting exposed, things get even crazier. At level 9, we have none other than Tosh Deluxe. Tosh was a very well-known player and impossible level showcaser from the Netherlands. He caught the community's attention by beating top levels such as Bloodbath in 2016. Simultaneously, he was also one of the only people to upload somewhat decent showcases of impossible levels such as Death Corridor and Silent Circles. He recorded these showcases by creating semi-auto versions of the impossible level. Parts of the showcase would consist of him stitching together clips from practice mode and start position runs. The rest would be auto, either due to invisible platforms or invisible pads. This sounds like a lot of unnecessary background information until you take a look at what unfolded between April 2017 and July 2023. On April 21st, 2017, Tosh uploaded the verification video of Devil Vortex, a top 10 demon at the time. Drama started immediately due to Tosh being unable to convince Pointer Crate that he beat the level legitimately. People pointed out that there were a few quote-unquote lag spikes in the video, which conveniently occurred right before and right after the hardest parts of the level. Additionally, there were 0 audible clicks in the entire verification. Over time, Tosh uploaded some deep runs on the level as a way of proving his legitimacy, and he even claims he rebeat it. The community was torn on what to believe at this point, but everyone decided to let the drama go and move on. That was, until over a year later when Nepesta struck a goldmine. One day in 2018, Nepesta was investigating Tosh's copy of Devil Vortex for evidence of it being illegitimate. What he found was an array of 54 saw blades at the top of the copy. When confronted, Tosh claimed that those saw blades were being placed there because he was using them to buff the level. Nepesta knew that there was more to the story, so he kept digging. Upon thorough investigation, it was determined that if you want to create a proper semi-auto of Devil Vortex, you'd place blue pads in 4 parts. The 30 ball minus the blue orb spam, and the last 3 waves. If you put a blue pad at every single click in those parts, you will place exactly 54 of them. The conclusion was that Tosh beat the semi-auto version of Devil Vortex, stopped recording, removed the blue pads, and placed those 54 saw blades at the top of the level to keep the object count the same. Interestingly enough, the exact same phenomenon happened on Unnerved Paracosm Circles. Tosh's copy, which he claimed to have beaten legitimately, had 45 blocks placed randomly at the top of the level. If you count the number of clicks Tosh did in the last wave, which is by far the hardest part, you get 45. Upon hearing the news, Tosh deleted his Unnerved Paracosm Circles video, but kept fighting over Devil Vortex. Unfortunately for the community, this evidence somehow wasn't enough to reach a definitive verdict. Nepesta collaborated with the entire Demonless team to make another exposal video, but it didn't get the result that they hoped for. Tosh was adamant that he did not hack, and a large part of the community was on his side. Once again, everyone wanted the drama to die and seemingly didn't care whether Tosh hacked or not. So while these saw blades were not the nail in the coffin like Nepesta wanted, it did plant the seed for what happened in July 2023. At this time, a player by the name of Hexylic uploaded the video that finally closed the case of Tosh Deluxe. In the video, it was shown that a few particles were emitted from Tosh's mini-wave when he did a click starting on the ground. If you play the game on low detail mode, you only get particles coming from your wave if you touch a blue pad. We finally had undeniable evidence that Tosh Deluxe verified a semi-auto version of Devil Vortex. To my knowledge, he still has not publicly admitted hacking anything to this day, despite it being 9 years since the scandal began. He carried on for a while as if nothing ever happened, and then disappeared from the community in May 2025. So far in this video, we've investigated 9 different downfalls of Geometry Dash hackers. The only way we can possibly end a video like this is by going over the craziest exposal in video game history. I present to you, Level 10. Solus. Solus is an American player who was never good enough at the game to build up a decent reputation. He beat a couple top 50s throughout his career, but only when the demon list was free. The achievements he's most known for are jumping from Blade of Justice to Ocular Miracle, somehow dying 12 times to the mountain on Nelv, and appearing in a TCD video. Similar to all the other hackers in this video, Solus had one unfortunate moment that changed his reputation forever. On September 7th, 2025, a Geometry Dash player who will remain anonymous publicly stated that he had a dream that Solus hacked Erebus and admitted everything due to feeling guilty. The dream caught the attention of a few other people in the community, and long story short, Solus is banned from Pointer Crate. He never came forward about what his exact hacking methods were. In fact, to this day, he still carries on as if nothing ever happened, so it's likely that we'll never know the full story. All we do know is that getting caught hacking because it was in someone's dream is the craziest downfall the game has ever seen. The lesson of this video is that cheaters always get caught eventually. Also, the internet is forever. Taking a shortcut for attention and praise can lead to a lifetime of embarrassment. If you're interested in hearing about which Geometry Dash players are most and least likely to be hacking currently, be sure to click on the video on your screen. While you're at it, hit the subscribe button if you enjoy this type of content. Hacking in Geometry Dash is a topic that I keep coming back to because honestly I can never get sick of talking about it. Thank you so much for watching this video, and have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.